I did want to just discuss kind of where things go from here. You know how much I love a good stakeout. I was part of the media stakeout of the college football playoff meetings on Sunday before the championship game. All the commissioners meet, all the presidents meet. And, you know, I was told they were kind of like dancing around the issues and things that people actually wanted to debate. So they're going to meet again in February. They always have a big multiple day meeting in April when they like rehash everything from the previous season. But they have to, if they're going to make any changes to the format or really how anything works for this coming season, so the 25 this fall, it has to be unanimous. And so when we talk about seeding issues, you would have to have unanimity with the Big 12, the ACC, the Mountain West, the American, all of these leagues where there's a ton of value in having 1 through 4 with buys go to conference champions. So you'd have to give up something there. Although, you know what I think is the easy tweak? I think you just pay them out what they would get from advancing from an extra round and adjust the seeding to match the rankings. But that has to be unanimous, which is why people are very skeptical that it would fully change for this year. And then I think Rich Clark was saying that, like, for a standpoint of figuring out changes for 2026 and beyond, which is an entirely different contract and the governance structure is different, which is why we can sort of talk about like the SEC and the Big Ten kind of dictating format changes. They believe that they can do that essentially unilaterally. There's, you know, there'll be input from others, but they can make these changes. Rich said that he thinks it needs to be done by the end of this calendar year because, again, there's not a lot of lead time. So I would love to see them discuss, you know, the sites of games. They have some agreements in place with the bowls. There's always been a history of, you know, relationships with bowls, but it's like a compromise. It's weird. The college football playoff could run all of these events and these games themselves without the bowls. But right now, you know, there's that piece of history with the sport. So I would love to see them evaluate the quarterfinal round, see if that could be something that could get played on campus. I think you're going to hear coaches pushing for that. You're going to hear a lot of athletic directors pushing for that and fans pushing for that because of how expensive it is to go to multiple neutral sites all over the country, depending on where your team plays. So those are things that I expect to kind of be there either, you know, kind of in the more immediate or middle intermediate timeframe of discussions. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to have another joint meeting in February as well. So they did that back in the fall. I went in Nashville. They're doing it to kind of flex a little bit in college football and kind of get everyone a little bit nervous. But certainly they're going to talk about the CFP format, Joshua. And I do think eventually we're going to have more conversations about the idea of multiple AQs, 3 or 4 for each of those leagues, year in and year out. And then you can kind of structure some things around it. Do you have a third place game, championship weekend, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think that piece is going to come back up here, as is like, do you go to a 14 team bracket versus 12, couple extra at large spots, and that adjusts the buys, and if there's 2 buys, do they go to the Big Ten, the SEC champ? You know, like those types of conversations are going to start up again as well for that 2026 period.
The AQ conversation, I don't necessarily love, but I do think if it's built into this idea of having a play-in round to see, like, you know, you take the top however many teams and they're playing for just those specific spots. That's something I think I could get on. You know, it would feel a little bit better because, again, you're using competition as a way to fill those spots. Do you know where this meeting in February is going to take place?
I think it's New Orleans.
Oh, New Orleans. Hopefully no snow there in February.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, like, again, there's a lot of other issues they'll get into, like the house settlement and stuff that you know, like affects these schools more than everybody else. But the rest of college sports, like, is very nervous about how closely the SEC and the Big Ten are working on stuff. And certainly with their ability to really dictate things in the college football playoff, they're going to do things that are going to benefit them. Will be interesting to see if the SEC is more on board with the multiple AQs now, knowing, you know, they fought really hard for Alabama to get in and they didn't, right? Like, wouldn't that have been nice to have another automatic spot? So those are topics and those are things that we're going to continue to track. I think these are all minor, right? Like the overall thing was, I think everyone's viewing it as a big success. So don't mess with the format too much. That's like the main thing, even if you are going to tweak it at the margins or fix the seating to match the rankings and things like that. So more meetings ahead. I'm sure I'll have more stakeouts ahead as well, but they will continue to track all of that.